Roberto Morales sat in his small room in Austin, Texas, a place that felt more like a cage than a home. At 72, he was a man who had always embraced his independence, reveling in the life he had built with his late wife, Sophia. Now, that life felt like a distant memory, a flickering candle in the growing darkness of his old age. Gazing out the window, Roberto watched the city bustle below, young people rushing to work or school, unaware of the quiet loneliness encasing him within four walls. Emotions bubbled within him, a complex mix of pride and humiliation. For years, he had worked tirelessly, poured his heart into his garden, and nurtured the young boy named Alejandro, who had grown into a strong young man. Despite being a widower for years now, he had hoped to age gracefully in the warmth of his family. But the years had not been kind. His body had begun to fail him. Long gone were the days he could wrestle a stubborn weed from the ground or carry a sack of potatoes from the field. Living with Alejandro and his daughter-in-law, Mariana, had initially brought Roberto joy. But as the days turned into weeks and then months, he began to feel like an unnecessary weight, a burden. The fleeting goodbyes, the hurried meals, and the constant worry he saw in Alejandro's eyes chipped away at his pride. He couldn't shake the guilt. Every glance at the now empty room meant for his grandson reminded him of how far he had fallen. Even as the seasons changed, so did his thoughts. Each dropping leaf signified another memory lost, another moment of feeling forgotten. As the world outside remained vibrant and alive, Roberto felt like a shadow of his former self. He started to entertain the thought of a nursing home, a place he once dreaded. To him, it seemed more like a sanctuary than a prison, a way for his family to move on, a means to lessen their burden. Roberto's mind drifted back to happier times. Their cherished home in San Antonio that had been their sanctuary. Sophia's laughter echoed in his mind like a sweet melody. Her warmth and love had filled their small wooden house with joy. They had taken in Alejandro, who felt like a gift from the heavens. Though not of his blood, Roberto loved him as if he were his own. They had transformed that modest space into a testament of hard work and warmth, a living testament of their love. But everything shattered on that fateful night when flames engulfed their home. The fire was swift, merciless, taking with it their past. Roberto remembered lighting a candle during a power outage. Exhausted from a day spent tending to the garden alongside Palomo, his loyal horse, he dozed off on the couch. It wasn't the crackling flames that woke him, but the frantic shouts of their neighbor attempting to save him, to pull him from the clutches of despair. As they dragged him into the night, he looked back to see his life, his photographs, his memories, all reduced to ash. The days spent in the hospital blurred into one long haze, filled with the scent of antiseptic and the sound of solemn voices. When he finally awoke, he was told he was lucky to have survived, a thought that felt more like a curse than a blessing. Upon being brought to Austin, not only had he lost his home, but a piece of his spirit had vanished along with it. Life with Alejandro and Mariana became a monotonous cycle. They were kind but distant, their lives spinning in fast motion around his volition. He could see they were both buried under the weight of their responsibilities, and that left him feeling even more invisible. His neighbor Teresa brought him meals sometimes and was a desperately warm soul in a cold world, but her words cut deep. "They don't want you here," she would say. "When we grow old, our children find it easier to push us away." On the day of his birthday, the loneliness felt suffocating as he sat alone at the table, staring at a slice of cake Teresa had left behind. Their hurried wishes that morning felt more like afterthoughts than an occasion for celebration. It was that day he made a resolute decision. He would no longer be a burden. The mere suggestion for his son to take him to a nursing home fell from his lips like a prayer. A confrontation followed when he broached the subject with Alejandro. "Take me to a nursing home," he implored. "Sell my land in San Antonio. Use the money. I don't want to cling to you like a leech any longer." Alejandro, already burdened with worries of his own, sighed heavily. "Not now, Papa. I've had a long day. We'll talk about it later." Frustration flared in Roberto as he realized his plea had been dismissed. "If you won't do it, I will," he yelled. But Alejandro only patted his shoulder, leaving Roberto feeling as insignificant as dust. Days turned into weeks, and the ache for change coursed through Roberto's veins. Each night was spent staring at Sofia's photograph tucked away in his wallet, whispering apologies for the burden he felt he had become. The silence of the house, now void of laughter, warmth, and memories, felt like a shroud, smothering him more day by day. Then, one Saturday morning, the atmosphere shifted, and hope flickered within him. Alejandro entered his room carrying fresh clothes and toiletries, accompanied by Mariana. "Pack your things, Papa," Alejandro instructed, his voice calm, yet determined. The words hung in the air. "We're going on a trip." Roberto's hands trembled as he stood in disbelief. His world was a mix of emotions: dread, relief, sorrow, and anticipation. "They're taking me," he thought, nodding silently with tears brimming in his eyes. The act of packing felt more like a goodbye than a journey. He folded his belongings carefully and tucked Sofia's photograph on top. The car ride became a silent affair, each man lost in his thoughts, the hum of the engine the only sound filling the space. Roberto held onto his suitcase like it was his last lifeline. Alejandro focused on the road, and Mariana's smile, a glimmer of happiness, felt misplaced. As they left the busy city behind, a wave of nostalgia crashed over him. The scenery began to shift from the urban landscape to open farmlands, dotted with wildflowers and ancient oaks. Memories of joy shared with Sofia, their laughter dancing through the wilderness, enveloped him. They used to venture out together to escape city life, planting dreams for a future filled with love. Yet the farther they drove, the more Roberto's heart raced. The surroundings became unfamiliar, a sprawling wilderness where civilization faded into memory. He gripped his suitcase tightly, his mind racing. Was this truly a trip? Or were they leading him to the very nursing home he feared? As the car finally slowed to a halt on a gravel road, the moment felt surreal. Alejandro stepped outside, gently opening the back door while Mariana took his suitcase. Roberto adjusted his glasses, his heart pounding furiously, squinting at the light pouring through the open door. All he expected was a nursing home, but before him stood a structure he knew all too well. His home. But this wasn't the charred ruin he had left behind. It was restored beautifully, a vision plucked straight from his cherished memories. The familiar white paint gleamed under the sun, the solid porch railings promising safe shelter, and every window sparkled as if welcoming him back. Roberto felt his knees buckle. A rush of disbelief surged through him. "What is this?" he managed to whisper. "Welcome home, Papa," Alejandro replied, a radiant smile illuminating the space between them. Tears spilled from Roberto's eyes as he stumbled forward, leaning into Alejandro for support. This home wasn't just bricks and wood. It represented the life he thought he had lost forever. As he stepped onto the porch, he brushed his fingers over the freshly painted railing, breathing in the sweet scent of varnish and pine. Each step felt like an act of resurrection. Upon entering, he marveled at the interior. So familiar, yet vibrantly new. The wooden floors shone, and the walls danced in soft hues. It was like stepping into the very fabric of their past, where every detail had been painstakingly created anew. The warmth of the fireplace hugged him like an old friend, and as he glanced toward the mantel, his breath stilled. There, in a prominent position, was a photograph of him and Sofia on their wedding day, frozen in time. As emotion overtook him, Alejandro gently guided him toward his old armchair, freshly upholstered and restored in the softness that had cradled him for countless evenings. "We never planned to send you away," Alejandro explained, choked with emotion. "After the fire, we made a promise to rebuild this for you. We wanted it to be a surprise." Mariana chimed in, placing her hand on Roberto's shoulder. "We used your land as a foundation for something new, something that represents all the love we have for you and the memories that can endure." Roberto's heart swelled at their kind words. But a nagging doubt lingered as Alejandro presented an envelope. "Do you remember those papers you signed a while back?" Confusion washed over Roberto as he recalled signing something months before. Alejandro cleared his throat gently. "They were construction permits, Papa. We needed your approval to rebuild your home. Every nail, every beam. It's all for you." Roberto's vision blurred with tears, and with trembling hands, he accepted a photo album. The edges were slightly singed, but within were glimpses of a life snatched away by flames. Pictures of laughter and love, of moments that survived beyond ash. Light streamed in through the windows, illuminating the pages as he flipped through. Each photograph unveiled memories, dancing in their garden, Alejandro as a toddler, Sophia planting flowers, echoing with life and joy. He felt the warmth seep into his bones, breathing life back into his weary heart. Suddenly, a familiar sound caught his attention. A gentle whinny floated through the open door. Every ounce of joy erupted within him as he hurried outside, aghast to see Palomo, his beloved horse, tied to a post in the garden. The old stallion's coat gleamed brightly in the sunlight, and Roberto couldn't hold back the tears as he rushed forward, embracing the creature that had seen him through countless seasons, through all of life's joys and sorrows. Mariana and Alejandro observed from the porch, pride and love radiating in their smiles. "We found him a few weeks after the fire," Mariana filled in. "He wandered into town, and the neighbors took care of him while we worked to bring him back." For a long moment, he stood there wrapped in Palomo's warmth, realizing that he had found them all again. His home, his horse, and above all, the love of his family. "I thought I had lost you both," he whispered, choking on his tears as Palomo nuzzled him gently. Later that day, as the golden sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with vibrant orange and pink hues, Roberto settled into the new routine of life. He and Alejandro worked on the garden together, surrounded by laughter and the delicate sound of crickets serenading the evening air. "I was wrong," he muttered to Alejandro one night on the porch. "I thought I was a burden, but you've shown me that I am anything but." Alejandro clasped his father's hand firmly. "You're our foundation, Papa. Without you, we wouldn't be the family we are today." In those beautiful moments, Roberto recognized something profound. He was not just reunited with a house, but with a life full of purpose, connection, and a deep understanding that love knows no boundaries. It transcends loneliness, transforming grief into joy, turning burdens into blessings. As Roberto unpacked his belongings, he discovered a letter he had written during one of his darkest nights, pouring out his apologies, asking for forgiveness for being a burden. In that moment, he chose to tear it into pieces, releasing every doubt that had ever clouded his heart. He embraced the truth that love is abundant and affirming. Later that night, before letting the stars cradle him to rest, he whispered to Palomo as he gazed out from his porch, reflecting on the memories they had shared. "We are home now, together, and it's far better than we could have ever imagined." Peace enveloped him, not just from the house he thought he had lost, but from the love that had always been with him, bridging generations and conquering fears, teaching him to trust the deep love nestled in his family's hearts. Roberto learned that home is more than just a place. It's the laughter of those you hold dear, the memories woven through the walls, and the love that binds a family together. And as the moon glowed softly above the new life they'd crafted, he realized at last he was truly home. In the end, what matters most in life is not how heavy the burdens may feel, but the beauty of family love and the tenacious spirit of remembering what is truly important: connection, purpose, and belonging. What would you do in Roberto's shoes? Would you have sought a nursing home, or would you have chosen to rebuild like Alejandro? Share your thoughts below. We'd love to hear your perspective on this touching story. If you enjoyed this narrative, don't forget to like and subscribe for more heartwarming tales that celebrate family, love, and the power of human connection. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you in the next video.